Now are we moving on to Elon, or I think?
Yes.
All right. My
Apparently,
favorite topic right now, because after so many years of, just only one side being told.
indeed. And apparently, am I reading this right, Drea? CTV's The Social host. I don't know who she is. I don't have time to watch CTV. And why would I want that propaganda anyways? Twitter is a problem. Elon Musk is a problem. Gee, that's not what the left was saying before he bought Twitter. Let's check this out.
Exactly.
Here's the problem. Like, Twitter is a problem. Elon Musk is a problem, but he's exploiting something that journalists and media outlets can't seem to figure out, which is that journalists can't quit Twitter. Nobody loves Twitter more than journalists.
They love it.
They love it. So these are our colleagues. This is us. These are our peers. There was a graph that came up, a survey of journalists asking them, hey, it's racist, it's toxic, Elon sucks. Are you going to use Twitter less? What was their response? Journalists, no, we're going to use it more. Yeah, but I don't know that that's the answer. Here's the problem.
Oh my goodness gracious, it's deja vu all over again. Maybe our super producers can dredge up that infamous BBC interview where Elon Musk reinvented himself as a journalist because, well, basically he was getting questioned by a moron. But again, she said, quote, racist and toxic, end quote, Drea Humphrey. And once again, failed to produce one tangible example.
Shred of evidence.
Yeah. Do you, in the Twitter bioverse, do you see this form as being racist and toxic?
I see that people are free to say whatever they want to say. I've seen a ton of racism be fine on Facebook, especially during the whole Black Lives Matter thing, because I was speaking out against that movement, of course, not against Black Lives Mattering. But I had so many racist comments said to me, people on Facebook saying, well, I hope you come across police and they take care of you like they do in the US, things like that. So it's not that I see more racism. It's just that I see there's less censorship of maybe comments like that in the opposite direction, if that makes any sense. But it's crazy because I'm not the one crying over this platform. And yet the people who are can't even come up with any example of what they're saying and just summing it up as a problem. But it reminds me, I actually hadn't seen that chart before about the journalists saying we're not leaving Twitter. Of course, they're not leaving Twitter. That is the platform for politics. People love it for politics. There's a lot of people who love it for sports as well. So I'm told. And so they're not going anywhere either. But it does remind me a little bit of what I mentioned earlier about why we're on locals.com. If you want to check us out there, there's a description link. I can't stand the censorship on Facebook. I've stopped supporting YouTube. I do Rumble more. But here I am still on Facebook. There's something about it that I love, except the difference is they're actually censoring. Whereas all Elon is doing is supporting free speech, and anything that's illegal is not allowed on the platform.
Indeed. And we have proof of how I think the First Amendment was violated going back 2 years ago when the old Twitter regime was in power, where you had the New York Post, for goodness sakes, having its Twitter account suspended because they were publishing stories about Hunter Biden's laptop. Completely accurate. No example of hate or toxicity or what have you. And yet the censorious leftist thugs at Twitter at the time were picking and choosing what Americans could consume during a federal election, which might just have altered the outcome of that federal election, that suppression of information. And again, when Elon Musk had nothing to do with Twitter, he was the electric vehicle guy. He was the CEO of Tesla. And how the left loved to drive their Teslas. Every time I'm in the Avenue Road in St. Clair area, Drea, there's always this Tesla I come across. It's got a vanity license plate and it says RIP oil, right? He probably doesn't understand how the Tesla was made, but never mind. And anyways, he was the glory boy. He was the carbon zero champion. He's the guy that's going to go to space before NASA can get to Mars, yada, yada, yada. And now, my goodness gracious, the last issue of the year for 2022, Car and Driver, which I like for their car reviews, but even their politics come through. They had loser of the year, Elon Musk. And wait a minute, you were the guys that were previously writing that Elon Musk jump-started the EV revolution, which they think is fantastic, by at least a decade, coming out with these cars before the mainstream auto companies were. So what changed? Well, what changed, Drea, is Elon has become a champion for free speech. And for some reason, the left, well, at least when there were classical liberals, they used to champion free speech too, but not anymore, because in their view, free speech, if it goes against their grain, is therefore hate speech and must be suppressed. It's despicable.
It is. And that's what the propaganda teaches the people. And so it's no wonder they feel that way. And that's why platforms like Twitter are so important, because you can see news from any source, whether it's CTV or Rebel News like this, so fast in your face, and it doesn't have that extra filter. But something else I love about Twitter is that as soon as Elon took over, one of the first things he did was crack down on a lot of the exploited stuff of children that was on there, the sexually exploitive stuff. So are they talking about that? Is that a problem to CTV? That was amazing. And it was getting so bad on Twitter with the censorship that just before he took over, one of the things you could not write on there was the word or the term child grooming. You actually couldn't write that on Twitter because they said it was a slur against the LGBTQ community. So literally, if you were talking about a pedophile who's heterosexual, you couldn't talk about how they groomed children on that platform. And I think, to say that that's a slur against the LGBTQ community, you're basically saying they're all child groomers then. That's the only thing it applies to. But that's how bad it was getting on Twitter. CTV wasn't saying boo about that. And now I'm happy to say, since I report a lot on the sexual indoctrination of children, I have been able to write child groomer when it applies.
Andrea, can you come up with anything more grotesque than pedophilia? And yet we live in a world right now, my friend, where there are certain circles out there that they are already rebranding pedophilia. They're calling it intergenerational love. There is a move afoot to legalize intergenerational love if the minor is consensual to a sexual relationship. Then who are we to stand up to this love? This is despicable. This is disgraceful. And so there's no problem there in the Twitter of yesteryear. But there is a problem with Twitter today because it's racist and toxic. And I think our producers, Drea, they've found this BBC interview. This will never get old. This is where Elon Musk took the journalist to school. I almost feel sorry for the journalist. I wonder if he still has a job at BBC. But then again, they're government-funded media. They don't have to be all that careful either, right? So check this out, folks, if you've never seen it before. Pardon me?
They get $8 billion, I think, from the government.
I believe so, yeah.
Wow.
Content you don't like or hateful? What do you mean to describe a hateful thing?
Yeah, just content that will solicit a reaction, something that may include something that is slightly racist or slightly sexist, those kinds of things.
So you think if something is slightly sexist, it should be banned?
No,
is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying anything. I'm saying.
Well, I'm just curious. I'm trying to understand what you mean by hateful content, and I'm asking for specific examples. And you just said that if something is slightly sexist, that's hateful content. Does that mean that it should be banned?
Well, you've asked me whether my feed, whether it's got less or more. I'd say it's got slightly more.
That's why I'm asking for examples. Can you name one example?
I honestly don't use. Honestly, I
you
don't.
Can't name a single example.
I'll tell you why. Because I don't actually use that for you feed anymore. Because I just don't particularly like it.
But you said
a lot of people are quite similar. I only look at
hang on a second.
my
You said you've seen more hateful content, but you can't name a single example, not even one.
I'm not sure I've used that feed for the last 3 or 4 weeks. And
then how did you see the hateful content?
Because I've been using Twitter since you've taken it over for the last 6 months.
Okay, so then you must have at some point seen for you hateful content. I'm asking for one example.
Right.
And you can't give a single one.
And I'm saying
I say, sir, that you don't know what you're talking about.
Really?
Yes, because you can't give me a single example of hateful content, not even one tweet. And yet you claimed that the hateful content was high.
Well,
that's false.
No, what I
You
claimed,
just lied.
What I claimed was there are many organizations that say that that kind of information is on the rise. Now, whether it has on my
Give me
feed
one
or
example.
not, I mean, right, and
Literally
if you
can't
look at
name
something
one.
like the Strategic Dialogue Institute in the UK, they will say that. So
Look, people will say all sorts of nonsense. I'm literally asking for a
Right.
single example, and you can't name one.
right, and as I already said, I don't use that feed. But
Well, then how would you know that?
I don't think this is getting anywhere.
You literally said you experienced more hateful content, and then couldn't name a single example.
Right, and as I said,
That's absurd.
I haven't actually looked at that feed.
Then how would
say,
you
for
know
a
there's
few
hateful
weeks.
content?
Because I'm saying that's what I saw a few weeks ago. I can't give you an exact example. Let's move on. We only have a certain amount of time.
Yes. Oh, Drea, if that was a boxing match and I was the trainer of that poor beleaguered journalist, I'm already throwing the towel in.
Yeah.
Ring the bell, please. Let's get him out of here alive. He is violating the very basic tenet of journalism 101. You make a statement, you back it up with a fact or an example. And this guy was just contradicting himself. Absolutely brutal. I think they will be playing that clip in journalism schools, if they still exist, that is, for decades to come, because that is how not to do an interview.
Oh, it's painful to watch, but Elon handled it so good, so smoothly. He's like, you just lied. Like everything about that. I could watch that a lot of times. But yeah, journalism 101. Simply do your research, know what you're talking about. And especially if you're interviewing Elon Musk. Who comes to an interview with Elon Musk unprepared?
Oh, in fact, if I was dropped in, I didn't know any of the names. I didn't know who was who in the zoo, Drea.
Yeah.
If I came in at the halfway mark, I would assume that Elon Musk is the journalist and the guy being crossed is the personality, right? But,
That's a clip from something we call Rebel News Daily. It's our daily live stream hosted by my friend David Menzies, but the show also includes a rotating cast of hosts and special guests, including me. It's a great way for us to talk about the news of the day as the news is happening in an unscripted fashion, and it's an awesome way for you to interact with us as well. We stream every weekday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Mountain, wherever you find Rebel News. See you there.